those levels are not sustainable because all our investment when we do in infrastructure is dollar based because the equipment is coming from different countries. It's not made in Pakistan. The main thing is that when we take these services out into the rural areas, specifically women, so a lot of we've had women credit cards, women accounts, how to facilitate, because that's 50% of the population. You cannot keep them out of the economics of the country.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Aall Things Money. My guest today is Kazim Mushtaba, the President of Consumer Division at Jazz. Hi Kazim, so great to have you today.
Thank you for having me on the show.
It is so great to have you over here because one thing there is a lot of hype in the news about is Starlink, but there's not a lot of knowledge about it. So can you tell us, if Starlink comes to Pakistan, if it clears the regulatory hurdles, is it in competition to the telcos or is it complementary? How will it affect internet penetration in Pakistan?
I don't look at it as competition. I think they will complement us. There are still millions of people in Pakistan who do not have access to mobile telephony, whether it is voice or data. And that is because they are in far-flung areas, whether it's in the north or is in Balochistan, where the terrain is extremely difficult to cover. So Starlink is an ideal solution to provide internet connectivity to those areas. Now, Jazz would like to partner with them in Pakistan. Our parent company, VEON, has already partnered with them in Ukraine because of its unique situation. But I feel if we want to have a truly digital Pakistan, then we will need to cover 100% of our population sooner or later, and Starlink just expedites that. So I would actually welcome, based on the right government policies, for Starlink to have its presence in Pakistan, and look forward to working with them.
So we have Starlink, that is in the conversation. One thing that keeps petering out is 5G licenses, and there seems to be a lot of hurdles over there. Can you talk a bit about that?
Okay. 5G, now most of the operators in the world, in West and in Southeast Asia, in US, Canada, they are transitioning to 5G or have already transitioned to 5G. In Pakistan, we are exploring opportunities. We are in touch with the government. The most important thing is the terms and conditions of the information memorandum that the government is going to release in the next couple of weeks.
What is an information memorandum?
That you can say it's do's and don'ts of the license. We talk about the speed, we talk about the rollout, then a lot of other obligation that the operators or whoever holds the license and the spectrum has towards the regulator. We have had dollar-based payment for spectrum previously. With the devaluation, high interest rate, that puts a lot of pressure on the financial situation of all the operators. So we feel that the government is going to look at a long-term perspective, not just a short-term on how much value can be created by the auction, but actually how the value is created by creating economic opportunities when people have access to advanced digital services. That is how I want to look at it, that I don't want 5G just to be used by few people in high dense urban areas. The affordability aspect has to be addressed when we are launching 5G services. If my entry cost to 5G is going to run into hundreds of millions of dollars covering the spectrum and the equipment, then for me to offer the 5G services to masses, like we have our revenue per user is less than $1 in Pakistan. Anybody can do the math that how to recover a couple of $100 million when you're making about $1 from a customer in a month, the math doesn't work. So we want to make sure that the terms are favorable and we actually create economic activity which will have a much bigger longer term impact than just looking at the short term license value.
So to just sum it up, 5G is just too expensive. There's not a strong enough business case for it at the current level.
Right now, as I said, we have to wait for the information memorandum, but if it is going to be heavy on rollout obligations, dollar-based payments, and a lot of upfront fee, that is going to put a question mark on the financial viability. We are very excited. We are working with the government just to make them realize on how the long-term prosperity is going to come when digital products are going to be available to the customers that run on the 5G technology. But we also have to make sure that it is a financially viable situation for all the operators.
Would a 5G rollout be different from a 3G or a 4G rollout?
The equipment is different. Of course, the network has to be upgraded, and the biggest difference comes in the backhaul, which is the fiber network. Now, 5G carries so much traffic that currently, I mean, not getting into technical details, but microwave solution is used when one site is communicating with the other. The fiber penetration is less than 25, 30%. The 5G will require all the 5G enabled sites to be connected through fiber, which allows very high data transfer speeds and capacity. So it is not just the investment in upgrading the tower and getting the license, but the entire fiber footprint for city coverage that will have to be enhanced significantly.
So basically 5G rollout is not simple. It will require a lot of investment.
Yes.
And there has to be a business case for it. You cannot just sink hundreds of millions of dollars in 5G investment when the return per user is less than $1.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. So in a scenario in which we have Starlink and we have 5G, so Starlink would be covering the far-flung areas and 5G would be covering the more dense urban areas. We would have a very excellent internet infrastructure for the masses.
Yes, I totally agree, because the way we see it globally, 5G starts with your dense urban areas with your high income population, which could be your top 5, top 10 cities initially, and then as the services, the handsets, everything, the prices, they start to come down, then they start penetrating tier 2, tier 3 cities. But with Starlink in play, both rural and urban people will have access to high-speed internet.
So this is like a very rosy, optimistic view. 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, we have Starlink, we have 5G. But what I see in the sector is a lot of consolidation. PTCL, which owns Earphone, is acquiring Telenor. There's consolidation in the sector. So doesn't that mean that maybe the sector is not that profitable?
I mean, I agree with the statement that you made that it's a game of volume. Again, because the ARPUs are low, the price points are low.
ARPUs?
It's the average revenue per user, as I mentioned, it's around $1 or below. Those levels are not sustainable, because all our investment when we do in infrastructure is dollar-based, because the equipment is coming from different countries. It's not made in Pakistan. So my cost is in dollars. Then there is a huge amount of cost I have to pay for fueling the sites, electricity. So now all of those things are dollar-based, whereas my revenue is rupee-based. So with the devaluation and everything, the scale becomes important. Mobilink acquired Warid back in 2016, which formed Jazz. So we are actually, I have a positive opinion about the merger, because with consolidation, we can rationalize the offerings that we have for the customers. Nobody is going to be getting into price wars. Nobody is going to go for a land grab, because all 3 operators will have significant market share and actually then look at turning this industry into a profitable industry rather than a struggling one.
So right now, it's my understanding, Jazz is around 37% market share.
Yes.
So once the merger goes through, once PTCL acquires Telenor, they will have roughly the same market share. 37. So that's more like a Pepsi, Coca-Cola situation going on over here.
Yes and no, because market shares, we look at it from 2 perspectives. On the customer subscriber market share, we will be at parity, both Jazz as well as the merged entity. But our pricing strategy, our services that we are offering, and the products that are available in the market gives us a big gap on the revenue market share. And that is the whole strategy that we have adopted in the last 2 odd years, which started off with the DO 1440. I mean, digital operator 1440 minutes in a day. We wanted to engage with the customers throughout the day. Because right now, what you do with internet is you might be using a social media app outside Pakistan. We actually launched a lot of services where instead of going outside Pakistan, you're using services that we have developed. And that is the transition that Jazz is doing right now, going from a telecom operator to a digital to a service cooperator. So we have launched a lot of services. You talk about insurance, you talk about gaming, you talk about entertainment, education, financial inclusion. So all aspects of the time spent by a customer during a day, we are trying to cover through our products and services.
Okay, so last year, Jazz sold off its towers and it's headed towards an asset-light model, which means it's not owning a lot of infrastructure. What it is investing is in services.
Yeah.
As you know, I mean, if I were to just talk about myself, it's Netflix or it's Prime or it's Instagram. So, you know, you're right, most of my time on the internet is spent on websites that are, or services that are foreign. And it's my understanding that Jazz has this whole portfolio of apps that can take up a consumer's time. Question is, how well will you be able to compete with them? I mean, there have been super apps, there have been attempts to have super apps, and nothing has really worked out well in the past for other companies.
I think the biggest advantage that we have is the AI models and the data analytics. So we capture a lot of data points of usage behavior. So then we have our AI and generative AI models.
Isn't there some confidentiality problem with that?
We don't look at customer level data. We look at the behavior at an aggregated level.
So you won't see what Fatima Attarwalla is doing. You will see what women in their 30s are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I will see how, let's say, women in Karachi are using their phones. How many times are they on internet? How many voice calls do they do? So it helps me with the profiling. That what product should I design for a customer like you?
So if I were to say, what is the profile of your most profitable customers at Jazz?
Most profitable customers, actually, the one that is emerging is high-end urban youth, like 18 to 25-year-old.
Gen Z and
all. And we launched a brand called Rocks to target them. So our strategy of Jazz was to have a great connectivity product and give you lifestyle products. So with Rocks, it's a lifestyle brand which has connectivity option available in it. So we have flipped the narrative to target them because they are not your usual customers. So we are investing heavily into partnerships with ride-hailing services, food delivery services, restaurants, online shopping, e-commerce platforms to bring those services to our Rocks customers. Now, it's a very niche customer base. We have about 1 million subscribers right now, but I believe the way the segment is evolving, after a few million, it will cap because we want to have a very significant behavior pattern for those customers. We don't want to dilute it with opening it for the masses because then the differentiation diminishes. So in terms of profitability, those are our most profitable customers.
So basically, your offerings are moving away from boomers and millennials to the younger crowd, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, because as we move forward, as we evolve, it is the younger crowd that is more on the mobiles. So that makes sense to me. But what about your competition? Will not they be also creating their own apps?
I mean, it's...
And again, how would you differentiate from them?
I personally believe Jazz got into this many years back because there was a belief that voice and internet is not the way to go forward. Because, I mean, for the past decade or so, we've been hearing the dumb bit pipe, verbatim that we provide the bandwidth, we provide the connectivity, but the value add is taken by the other apps. So that was the whole idea back in the days globally that we need to make sure that the traffic is coming to our apps, right? So let's say, we have launched Tamasha, which is our TV OTT platform. We are around 18 million people over there. That opens a complete ad tech, the advertising space. So it already is generating a lot of revenue in terms of ads because there are a lot of eyeballs coming over there. It is able to attract a lot of advertisers because they want to communicate with those customers. So with all these apps, we have a huge head start in terms of where the development and evolution of these apps are. Other operators, I mean, they can develop it, but it just requires a complete dedicated focus. So we have dedicated teams, hundreds of people in development areas, in marketing areas with the expertise. Now, I cannot take my pricing person and expect him to develop an app for Gen Z. It's a very different skill set. So the hiring process has changed. The kind of people coming into Jazz, that is changing. It is not just telecom people. We have developers, We have UX, UI experts who know how to play with the app. We have a lot of product development specialists from this arena. And it's a new field. And we are investing a lot in training the people and bringing the right people. Jo service co model will be facilitated through them. It will not be through the traditional telecom HR recruitment that we've been doing.
I mean, with Tamasha, do you expect a lot of eyeballs during the ICC championship? I think that you do stream cricket on it.
Yeah, so that is one of the biggest use cases.
Because I think it's my understanding that from watching on TV, a lot of people have shifted to apps and there's a lot of potential there.
Because with an app, there was a study done that when you are watching the TV, whoever has a remote control manages what is being watched.
Absolutely.
Even it is on television, they might flip through it. So 4 or 5 people. So we have now Tamasha as a product in their hand. And it is very popular. I mean, 18 million is a huge number. And it peaks, of course, during the cricket season. So now we have a long cricket season starting with ICC, and then after, I think, Ramzan, we will be having our PSL. And millions of eyeballs are just on Tamasha. It becomes the most watched app TV platform in Pakistan. Right? It's like
during cricket season.
During cricket season, even otherwise, we are developing our own content, which is exclusive to Tamasha. We are getting into Reels. Then we have a lot of partnerships with international content developers. And I mean, you have to experience the app to actually know the things that we are doing. Like Netflix, there is going to be a recommendation engine. So based on your user habits, again, the AI bit is going to be helping pushing the right content to you. So if you watch, let's say, comedy series, so it will be pushing you that kind of content. If you watch sports, then you will be getting the relevant content pushed to you.
What I'm hearing about Jazz is that there are a lot of verticals. So you have the traditional telco business, and with the 5G and the Starlink and everything there. Then you have Tamasha, then you have Rocks, and early you talked about health tech, insurance tech, edutech. So each of them have their own giants in their field. Some of them are completely new. Like edutech, once we had a conversation in the past about how you would like to offer O-level exams, tuitions on it. That is so different from the current business model that you have. So again, as a company, don't you think you're too stretched even with all the HR facilities and the new teams?
Oh, well, yes. We felt ourselves in our management meetings that there is too much breadth and we don't have the expertise on how to manage these businesses. And I mean, we were very fortunate, as I said, based on the data analytics and customer profiling, that all these apps has millions and millions of customers using them.
What are the number of users you have across all the apps, the Jazz subscribers, everybody? What is your number?
Close to 100 million.
Close to, in a population around 240 million.
So 100 million people are engaged with us, Jazz and non-Jazz customers, because a lot of other operator customers are using Jazz Cash, are using Tamasha, are using insurance.
Jazz Cash is another very
Jazz
big
Cash,
vertical,
exactly.
yes.
So, to manage such a diverse portfolio, we embarked on a journey on creating different small companies within Jazz, right? So right now we call them strategic business units. So there is one business unit which is for financial services. So we have our bank. So we didn't talk about it. So Bobolink Microfinance Bank is also owned by us. So that is parked over there, and Jazz Cash is also part of the financial services vertical. Then we have the consumer vertical, where all of you are part of it. So we are managing around 72, 73 million customers. So that portfolio is with me. Then we have a B2B vertical, where we have cloud services and corporate solutions that are being offered to all the top corporates of Pakistan and SMEs. And then we have Tamasha and Samosa and music apps, and also there's a whole portfolio of services over there as well. So then 4 or 5 of us are managing the business unit supported by the larger organization, to make sure that our focus is not diluted. So everyone has their own set of customers, set of targets, and complete P&L are being separated for us to manage our business on what are we getting in terms of revenue, how much investment is happening. So this is still in a transition phase, because it's very complex creating so many units out of a traditional telecom company. but I think we are getting there slowly, and in the next couple of months there is going to be more focused on the specific verticals rather than having a focus across the breadth.
So within the different verticals that you mentioned, there are two that I would like to talk about: Cash and Mobilink microfinance in terms of inclusivity, especially in the far-flung areas. And a totally different question would be on cloud services and sovereignty of data and keeping the data within Pakistan rather than using maybe Microsoft or Azure exporting the data abroad. So if you would like to comment on
Sure.
these two.
JazzCash has been a phenomenal success. This
In that Easy Pesa just getting the license recently, how does that affect it?
I mean, the license does give them leverage over certain things, but the licensing process, we knew EasyPesa is going to get it about 2 odd years back. So there were things in work that will to ensure that we do not lose our competitive positioning.
Right now, JazzCash versus Easy Pesa, who has a bigger market share?
I mean, it depends on how we look at it.
I think that gives me my answer.
So, but JazzCash, we have focused very heavily in rural education. Like whether it is for data services, connectivity, the main thing is that when we take these services out into the rural areas, specifically women. So a lot of we've had women credit cards, women accounts, how to facilitate, because that's 50% of the population. You cannot keep them out of the economics of the country. So having women entrepreneurs, the main thing is having access to a bank account. That is facilitated through JazzCash. And at the grassroots level, there are literally people over there. We have these stall activities, float activities going into the far-flung areas of tier 3, tier 4 towns, where people are actually physically opening accounts for them. And then all of a sudden they get connected to the wider network. It's a totally different game for them. So JazzCash has been very instrumental over there. We just launched QR for merchants and all, because this will actually help digitize the payment ecosystem in Pakistan, which is also very critical, because then there is this digital footprint of all the transactions that are happening. It helps with the taxation, and then it helps with the audit and understanding how the money flow is happening in the economy. So JazzCash is facilitating that, and pretty soon, like in many countries, specifically like China, for example, everything is done through you scan and you pay through the wallet. It is becoming cashless. We want to start doing that transition as well, that you do not need to carry cash. Everything is going to be part of your JazzCash account, because you will be able to tap into the merchants and just make payments over the QR. Now, when we talk about cloud, it is very important, I believe, from data sovereignty and security perspective, that data created in Pakistan stays within Pakistan, and that's a service we offer. In cloud,
how do you compete with the bigger boys, the internationally bigger boys?
It is a big challenge at the moment, because we recently started on this journey about a year back, right? And the education of the people, making them understand, because it's not just us versus international players, is also moving away from having traditional servers, bricks and mortar infrastructure to a cloud-based thing where there is no infrastructure. Everything is residing somewhere else, and you have access to your information, your software and everything. So we are providing a full suite. It will take time. So the two challenges that we see is, one, of course, competing with likes of Amazon, Azure, all those people, and actually educating the corporates and SMEs over here to start using cloud services. So there is, again, a dedicated team. We've had a decent year in 2024, but there's a lot of work to be done in 2025 in both the fronts, competing with likes of Google, Microsoft, Meta, as well as creating awareness within the corporate and SME sector that these services are available for them to use.
Now this might be a stretch, a really big stretch, but has there any investment being made in AI or having a domestic large language model, such as the ones that deep search like China, or even at a smaller base, especially in local languages?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, we are actually, it's you can say a tri-party arrangement that we have involving academia and government, specifically for LLM. Because the large language models, all these AI-based, Gen AI-based things, they need to be structured in a way that it's not a generic thing, but it is a purpose. It is attached to a product. It is attached to an objective. So we are working on that. It is something new over here, and we want to take a lead because so many of our things we are depending on AI and machine language that to make sure that our service co-ambitions are being fulfilled and there are solutions available for Pakistani at large. We want to be at the forefront when these technologies are being developed and deployed in Pakistan.
At a more basic level, Pashto, Sindhi, Balochi, Urdu even, would those languages be incorporated? Because with just the language barriers, so many people cannot access ChatGPT.
Yes, true. We are first working with Urdu. Then it is like the Roman English type thing. So those are the first use cases that we are going to be working with. Then, as I said, there's the models, they learn by being used, right? So the more people use, the more data points are created and the faster the model learns. We don't want to open up too many languages because then the learning of the model is going to be very slow. So we just want to start with Urdu and Roman English. And then once we see the success over there, then we take it to other languages. But once one language is trained, then the incrementality, the time taken for new languages to be part of the bigger model is going to be much lesser.
So does it have its own vertical, or is it part of some other vertical?
Right now, I believe we are in exploratory stage. So it's a smaller team. You can say a think tank looking at it on how actually it is going to work. So we have a software vertical as well. I didn't really talk about that. So where we are not just preparing services for internal use, but we will be doing it for other customers as well. So once this gets into the production level, most probably, I mean, it's not confirmed, but most probably we will be housing it in our software factory.
So all of this is what gives you the edge of the new merger with PTCL buying Telenor.
Yeah, edge in a sense that we have, as we discussed earlier, we have gone beyond just being a mobile operator. We don't want to call ourselves telecom operators. That is why, if you've seen the last campaign, we launched Superpowers. Superpowers is all the services other than connectivity that actually enables you to have superpowers. So that is the whole positioning of the Jazz mobile brand, that you can, again, going back to the 1440, that if you want to use the services, we have a host of services offered by Jazz that you can use.
You mentioned 1440 earlier. What is 1440?
It's minutes in a day.
14 minutes in 40 days?
1,440 minutes in a day.
Okay.
So we want to be connected to the customers. Whatever you do.
Okay, 1440, yeah. 1440 minutes a day. You just want people to be using Jazz.
Yeah, I mean,
use Jazz internet to get on Tamasha and watch advertisements and all that. Why not? Yes, and then you do your business. You pay through Jazz Cash and you save your data on the Jazz cloud. So yeah, why not? And you talk to it using Jazz AI. Yes. So that is the vision.
That is the vision, and again, connecting the dots, just making sure the whole ecosystem works together in harmony, that is the biggest challenge, right? Right now.
Don't you face separate regulatory and licensing challenge in each and every vertical?
For TV, yes, there's PEMRA, but predominantly we are working with PTA, with Jazz Cash and Bank, we have SBP. So currently we are managing 3 very big regulators, but by and large, it's a good dialogue, it's a good relationship that we have with them, right? So even if we feel that we need some flexibility, the doors are open for a dialogue, right? So we do engage a lot with all 3 entities, all 3 institutions on a very regular basis. And we try, like the NUST lab that we have, the 5G lab, we are inviting officials, the government officials, to come and actually experience what 5G is all about. Because, we eat, breathe these things. So
if I had 5G in my mobile right now, how would it be different for me in voice calls or in Netflix?
In Netflix, not maybe that much, but that is the big challenge we have for 5G, that 5G consumer use cases are being developed as we speak in the lab. globally there are not too many use cases for individual customers. It is extremely good for corporate customers, for backhaul connectivity. The one big use case that we are looking at is fixed wireless access. It's like a fixed line but running over 5G network. So you don't need a landline, a copper line coming to your house. You don't need a mobile, you need
but nobody is using landlines anymore.
In far-flung areas still,
They're still there.
It will be
So
required.
5G and Starlink are more, they both have more of a business case rather than an everyday consumer case in the urban areas.
Yes, you're right.
So me as a Karachite, 5G is there, Starlink, it won't really make much of a difference, but it is me in some remote area of KP or Balochistan, then that is something that could be revolutionary in my life.
When I talk about corporate solution, again, it's one of the very famous use cases that everyone talks about, but it is would be interesting is like remote surgery, for example, right? Medical consultation, a lot of the robotics, right? So maybe we are not there now, but globally these things are happening. These use cases are there. The robotics specifically in warehousing are all running on 5G. Like Amazon Warehouse has an unbelievably sophisticated robot system for warehouse management that is running on very high speed internet. So you need that kind of bandwidth, because as a consumer, when you use Netflix or any of those things, you consume very little bandwidth compared to these technologies.
Internet is quite cheap for a consumer in Pakistan if you compare it to other countries, no?
Yes, and that I mean it's less than a cup of tea from what a customer pays, something that costs me hundreds of millions of dollars, and that we are one of the cheapest in the world. But if you do a speed test, an Ookla speed test, we are providing very high speed internet, because we as Jazz, we have invested a lot, because just to make sure that that becomes a strategic advantage for us in the long run to get the customers. If the phone doesn't work, then the customers, of course, it's very easy for them to churn to an operator which provides better service. So our strategy was that regardless of what we charge, if we are able to provide good service to the customers, people generally do not mind paying extra if the quality of service is higher.
No,
So
for
that
sure.
has been
If I can't talk
for
to
us.
people using my internet, then what's the point of my
Exactly. It doesn't matter if it is at a 20% discount or a 50% discount. If you can't use it, then it's
and even because internet, because voice data is so cheap, 20%, 50% discount doesn't add up to much. So I much rather pay a little extra and be able to talk over WhatsApp.
I just wish all the customers thought like you.
But then again, that becomes an urban-rural divide. For me, that additional amount is not significant. For somebody else in some other area, that additional amount might be very significant.
Yeah, I mean, people, as I said, who are paying about $1, that is what, around 300 rupees, less than 300 rupees, they are very price conscious. So their trade-off on quality versus price is very different from a segment which pays, let's say, 1,000 rupees.
So what I'm understanding from all this discussion is that Starlink and 5G are not really essential in the current infrastructure, but investments are necessary if you want to compete with the global markets 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Yes, you can't be not in the technology race. Otherwise, globally, then you get left behind.
Yeah,
And
the same thing for AI, right?
Yeah.
We don't have an AI, but as you said, we need that LLM locally so that we can catch up to the world. Otherwise, the gap that is between Pakistan and the world is just going to increase.
I totally agree, and that's why we want to make sure that when all these things are being available, like take cloud for example, it has to be developed in Pakistan by our own software developers, and there is no shortage of really good talent available in Pakistan. It is just to make sure we give the right platform and the right incentive for them to stay back, and that is what, as I said, Jazz is doing. We have hired a lot of people who have nothing to do with telecoms, but they are expert in these fields, because this is the future on how we are going to grow. Telecom has become commodity. It is like a utility. So
it's essential. It's not something that you can do without.
Exactly. Yeah. So now, and there's not much differentiation. Everyone is investing in the network. Differentiation comes on what extra do we have, and that is where the whole service core, verticals, all these products. That is the strategic shift that we've had in the last couple of years, which, I mean, right now is giving us a tremendous advantage over competition.
Great, great. Thank you so much for coming to the show, Kazim. This was very informational. I think what we have learned today is that 5G and Starlink that are so much in the buzz are not really essential today, because we do not have the infrastructure that requires such high-speed internet. But at the same time, if these investments are not made, the gap between Pakistan and the world will increase. Telcos in Pakistan, as counterintuitive it may seem to a consumer who seems to be paying a lot for internet, they do not make a lot of money. For a telco to survive, it has to expand to a lot of different verticals, which is what Jazz is doing right now. And that's how it is going to survive the competition. And the latest competition will probably come from PTCL's acquisition from Telecom.